almost there. No way. What is this? You're tuned in to the Eyes Open podcast, where secrets aren't safe and we see it all.
Well, while we're on the topic of corrupt governments, organizations, and past declassified military operations, I figured why not finish off the week talking about another one. Now, today's show is obviously coined as, no pun intended, coined as the operation, the government op that you've probably never heard of. Okay? And the name of this operation was COIN-TEL-PRO. Okay? Now, COINTELPRO was a secret FBI program that used illegal and covert methods. Now, I want to give you guys the actual definition here because I want you guys to let me know what this sounds like to you, if anything kind of rings familiar. So it was an illegal and covert methods to monitor, disrupt, and discredit domestic political organizations active from 1956 to 1971. It targeted groups like the Communist Party, civil rights groups, and anti-war activists. Now isn't that interesting? So the point of what I'm making here by just giving you a brief summary before we dig deeper into this, they've, again, proven through declassified operations that the government does all types of things. I've showed that they're willing to carry out mass killings if they have to. They're willing to, bomb other countries or have other countries appear like they dropped bombs on us or did certain military acts to us so it'll justify a war. So at that point, I'm willing to think they're liable to do anything. But this is on a whole other level. This operation is a war on the public's minds, because what they want to do essentially with these, and if you think that an operation like this isn't still going on just under a different name, or this wasn't the beta test for a bigger program that's in full swing. And see, now I'm going to tell you how these types of programs live on. But essentially, this program was set up, for example, like it said, if you were in the civil rights movement or if you were a political activist, like they'd probably, I don't know what category I would fall in nowadays with what I talk about and stuff of that nature. But I would imagine I fall somewhere along, those lines. Okay. They would consider us more fringe conspiracy type people that, kind of get the masses riled up a little bit. They have all different types of terms they could coin us. So from conspiracy theorists to all types of stuff. But anyways, we are still going to be the types of groups, the people like me that talk about the stuff we talk about. We're going to be considered the ones that are the whistleblowers, the ones that are the disruptors, the ones that are getting people to be upset at the establishment. So they're definitely going to target people like us. And they've proven that they do this. So now there's multiple things that have taken place since this type of stuff happened. Because see, back then they could, you got to think about how different of a warfare landscape that we're fighting now as truthers or just citizens trying to get the truth out. We're fighting a whole different fight on a whole different field. Because back then, they could just, keep you out of the media. You had to go to, for example, somebody like me that wanted to sit around and talk about any type of news. People know that I talk about fringe stuff. I talk about crazy stuff, funny stuff. I talk about news, breaking stuff, stuff that's provably happening right now in the world. I talk about all kinds of stuff. But in order for me to get my Ted Turner on back in the day, I had to go and work for some type of conglomerate And at that point, they stifle your voice. Independent media didn't have the voice that it does nowadays. We didn't have the ability to get our voices out there without them being stopped before it ever started. And I don't know, even I would say prior, because see, Ted Turner and people like that were considered to be, a voice of trust for the people. Okay, or, back when people still trusted the media, because when can we think that trust started to go away? I can't say I really ever trusted the media. The media has always been, mainstream media has always been, I don't care if it's CNN, Fox News, they're all owned by one conglomerate. People seem to forget that, but they're all owned by the same big conglomerate. They're owned by Disney, who's owned by, you go down the line. That's how they keep you confused also. They spider out their connections so far, you don't know who owns what anymore. But yeah, it's a big form of spider corporations. But really, when you go down that rabbit hole of who owns everybody's voices, especially the big people, okay, like the Joe Rogans and all that, these people are controlled, okay? There's only so much they can say and they can't say. And the proof in that is you only need to look at anytime somebody brings up Israel on Joe Rogan's show, he shuts them down fast, even though, he's supposed to be this in the between voice that, doesn't stifle anybody's speech. But the second you start talking about Israel, he'll call you nuts like he did with Theo Vaughn. But back to the basics of what I'm talking about here. They've provably had control, okay? It had propaganda by the balls for a long time. They've been able to control how not only the information that you receive, but how you perceive that information. And that's how they did it with these type of operations. Because see, it says, to discredit domestic political organizations active from 1956 to 1971, as we'd said, it targeted groups like the Communist Party, civil rights groups, and anti-war activists. Now, the program's origins and when it expanded was it began in 1956 under FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's command to target the Communist Party of the United States. Not surprising. But it expanded in the 60s to monitor and weaken a wide array of domestic groups, including the Black Panther Party, the Ku Klux Klan, Martin Luther King Jr., and New Left anti-Vietnam War organizations. So even the generalized description, okay? So think about it this way. This is the description that they are giving you. This is the description that they themselves are admitting to. So this isn't something they're saying, oh, we don't admit to that. No, this is their definition of what, this is like them telling you how they screwed up. Okay? So they try to even paint it in the slightest to be okay. Oh, we were going after the Ku Klux Klan, or oh, we were going after the Communist Party, or it was all for your protection type of bullshit. That they always pitch that. It's always for your protection. But it was really to stifle a voice, and like I said, to change the public's perception on how these types of groups operate. Okay? Because, I mean, they had the old sayings like the revolution will not be televised. And I would have said nowadays with the internet, all of the things that's going on, the revolution would be televised because we have an outreach now that can't be stopped. But no, it isn't televised because when they were having all those uprisings over bills and not paying their taxes, they had a whole bunch of stuff going in Italy, was what, 6 months or so ago? Nobody heard shit about that. I had to go deep in the annals of the internet to find anything about anything that was going on with that in order to report it to you guys. Like, I had to do some digging to find that. A lot of the stuff that I look into, I have to go look on overseas search engines and websites and all kinds of shit, because they don't put that stuff out there for you guys to see. They don't want you seeing it for obvious reasons of why they wouldn't. Because they want to mold your perception. They're not just doing it through the movies. You know, that's a whole nother one that I believe. No, I've already touched on Operation Mockingbird. And there's just operations to shape public perception. Whether it was how the movies that are put out, the music that is put out, but now it's even what affiliations, what type of groups you hear, what type of knowledge you take in. They wanna put your brain into a prison that's covered by bars that they keep your whole brain sealed up into the box they want it in. You will think what they want you to think. And if there's a group that comes out that does not adhere to their agenda, they're going to take that out fast. I mean, that's obviously why a lot of these people were taken out back in the day. Kennedy stood in the way of it. If you just look into, his policies and what he was going for. So, of course, they were going to they took out any Kennedy just to be sure. They were just like, yeah, you know what? Just to be sure, we're just going to just take them all out. And we're going to have to worry about them at that point. And that's what they did. That's why anytime a Kennedy popped up that they thought was a threat, they took him out. And now they're saying, obviously, like I said, it's BS. Ended in 1971 after a group of activists burglarized an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. That's a nice little name there, too. And leaked documents exposing the illegal operations to the public. Wow. So what a nice little spicy ending right there. So it took an activist group breaking into FBI headquarters, okay, to expose this, to leak the documents to the public, to prove to people, because as I'm sure now, the stuff like I talk about, people are like, oh man, that doesn't happen. You're nuts. That's not real. Just like we get told, the people that are reporting on stuff, whether it's how, dangerous AI is, or, secret societies, whatever you're reporting on, the stuff people don't want to believe in, just you name it. It ends up, people have to take extra steps to make sure that it's proven. So honestly, hats off to those patriots that went out of their way, even if it meant breaking the law, to prove that this type of illegal horseshit was going on. I mean, it's not just illegal, it's a flagrant civil rights violation. And honestly, it should be a crime against humanity, because you're literally trying to manipulate the masses, not just one person or two people. That's like with the way you unalive one person, you're a murderer. They go and wipe out whole countries and they call it war. They call it what has to be done. Like, we really think about the mindset they have people in. You're not allowed to put your own opinion out there and shift people's brains any way you want to shift it. That's up to them to do. Okay? Now, don't do that now. And especially, none of you people better be out there thinking for yourselves. That's got to stop right now. Okay? We can't have none of that. We can't have nobody thinking for themselves now. But, I mean, honestly, I need to get some more files going here. I'm going to be honest with you. Because we have the Red files, we have the Epstein files. I need the dystopian files. I need the files that show, not just, like I said, the programs that they're running on people, okay, that are molding people into what they want them to be, but how this all fits together, leading us down a path of where we're all headed. Now, imagine that, because, okay, they call these things they're doing programs, okay? Like, oh, the MK Ultra program, all right? Then you have television programming, okay? I know a lot of these conspiracy people will take you down a whole rabbit hole of the meaning behind words and all that type of stuff. I've done countless episodes and reels about it, about how the English language is so wild. Well, at least how they give words to different things. Like you guys have all heard the one everybody talks about, television, tell a lie vision, tell a lie to your vision. And then programming, television programming. It's in the wording. It's very interesting how they worded all this stuff. Because you have to remember, at one point, this country, okay, I went and seen, what was it? I didn't get through the whole movie, but I watched part of that movie, Young Washington? And when you watch it, you can see that these people were around aristocrats and people that, you know, the whole cities and states and all kinds of shit ended up being named after. And you really think, like, the story they feed you about Washington and his upbringing, and he wanted so bad to be in the military, but he couldn't, and you know, the whole bullshit story they tell you. They rewrite history. They've done it. We know that the history they fed us is not real. They want you all to believe that crap. But I'll be honest with you. I'm going to tell you, okay? I'm going to tell you who runs these programs. Okay, very simply, very easily, who runs them, and then it'll make more sense to you. Okay? Essentially, Washington was put, okay, because remember this is very crucial to remember. Washington fought for the crown. Right here on American soil. Think about that. George Washington at one point was dying to fight for the crown, like his brother did, like everybody else he knew that was in it. It was a big thing. Oh, we want to fight for the crown. And so think about that. These were guys that were wanting to be militant for the British military. So that's kind of weird. It goes from being their biggest ally to their biggest enemy. Well, the truth is a lot stranger than fiction. The truth is this, okay? Even Ben Franklin, this is back in a time when there was no telegraphs, there was no nothing. I know I've probably spoken about this before, but for the people that didn't see the episode, I did a heck of an episode. Can't even tell you what the number is. You'd have to put in. It had to do with the education system. Was talking about how the Rockefellers and but before the Rockefellers, the school system was set up by Benjamin Franklin, and how they structured it so closely, because Benjamin Franklin, you know, structured the prison systems in a sense and the education systems. So these people, okay, there was nobody around to stop them or gauge them except for the royalty that they at one point worked for. But what had happened was they were essentially given full reign, okay? Guaranteed. Washington was promised what he wanted. You will be a king in the land. You have cities named after you. All this type of stuff. That's why a lot of our cities kept these royal names, because why wouldn't they not change them? Okay, look at how many royal names are all over this country, and we're saying that we fought for our they should have been changed. They have no problem changing names from Confederate soldiers, military bases and all that stuff. You have no problem shutting down history then. Why did they leave, you know, a lot of these Victorian, you know, British names as different cities and stuff like that? No, if we truly fought for our independence, they should have been changed. But long story short, they were Freemasons, okay, that came here and were offered the ability to set up the banking system here within the United States. And for that, they were rewarded very well because of it. And I'm sorry to tell you, folks, but a lot of the history, you know, is made up. That's why when people, because you have to remember something, people didn't know how to even read back in these days. They were so easily controlled. If you could pick up a book and read it, you were considered well-to-do back in those days. Okay, you were smart in a sense. They looked at you and said, "Oh wow, you can read." Look up how many people could read and write back in these days. So that sets up the whole establishment of a system. It sets it all up for major corruption. So when they set up this whole system to be ran the way they wanted it to be ran, once we got into an era that even the Bible told us about, where there will be an overflowing of knowledge. When that knowledge overflowed, there's people that come along, like myself, that say, wow, we've all been lied to, so we're going to expose it. We're going to tell everybody about it. Just like the people who, broke into the FBI headquarters and exposed this whole program of COINTELPRO. And people don't realize that these operations are still happening. Okay, and they've happened from, like I said, Operation Mockingbird to control the media, to control what you're hearing on the media, to control what you're seeing in movies, to control all type of stuff. And people, I think a big thing people need to realize and what they need to remember, because the satanic agenda is what's being pushed. You could see how darker everything's gotten, from your music to, you name it. The world has gotten way more darker over the years. But see, the whole point of this is what they wanted to do is to reshape the minds of the world. And now, as I've said time and time again, with AI and everything, they're going to have you guys not knowing which end is up, what is real and what is not. And you mix in politics, the propaganda machine, everything turning in perfect circles. What they're doing now is they are literally lining everybody up for the checkmate. They are. And what I'm saying is the only way people are going to truly open their eyes to what is going on in this world is, as I always say, we have to expose them to it. And not just expose them to it, expose the programs that all these that have actually happened. Because see, people think stuff like this is all a joke. They think it's all conspiracy theory. It's not. These are provable operations that took place. They've proven they are not afraid to do this to the American people. So the choice is yours. Are you going to decide to learn about the true history of your country and true history of these types of operations going on in your country that they call a free and open society? Or are you just going to stay blinded to it?